Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while, but today I'm going to be looking at Wahoo RGT and comparing it to some of the Zwift features with this recent Wahoo RGT release that just makes Wahoo RGT that much better. And I think that Wahoo RGT has huge potential and could potentially beat Zwift. And in this video I'm going to be explaining why, while also giving a rundown of Wahoo RGT's latest release. Let's dive into the video. Alright, so taking a look over at the Wahoo RGT release notes, you can see that Wahoo has a whole page up here that is dedicated to the release notes, and this is not quite as pretty looking as Zwift's, where they have a whole forum thread where people are allowed to chime in and give their thoughts on the update. Theirs is a bit different, and you can kind of see that latest update was April 25th, which is when I'm recording this right now, and you can see that the last one, March 8th, February, so they've been keeping sort of a consistent monthly release schedule, and you can see that the previous ones not quite as small, not quite as big as this one that was just released today. So this one is a pretty big update. So I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the new features and then explain why this might actually beat Zwift. Alright, so first of all, new features, we've got pacer bots on real roads, so there are now going to be the Wahoo RGT pacer bots on the Wahoo RGT real roads feature. New feature, ride together capability on real roads, so on the Wahoo RGT real roads, you can now ride with other riders that you know. Next, workouts can be selected and started during a ride. Previously, it was only before a ride, so this is a much better approach to this because it now allows for more customizability when you're in the game, and this is something that Wahoo RGT has actually done really well because you can actually choose to show certain elements and hide certain elements. So this kind of goes along with that, where you're talking about things that you can do in game that you can't really do on Zwift. However, this is a feature that Zwift does have that most of the Zwifters who have moved to Wahoo RGT have probably requested. Next, lap rider status is displayed in name tag and rider list during races only. This is super helpful, and this is something that I wish Zwift had because it gives you an indication if the rider sprinting for the finish is actually finishing or if they're just being an imposter and they have not actually finished and they are actually lapped. So this is a great feature that I wish Zwift had. And a new feature, event organizers and moderators are able to mute other riders. This is a good idea because it allows for more moderation of the community on RGT so that you don't have people saying inappropriate things or doing inappropriate things using the chat or speak feature. Next, all in-ride camera views, so they've made those better, which is great to see because Zwift currently wins for camera views where you can get nice screenshots of your avatar. So Wahoo RGT have improved that one. Trainer difficulty is defaulting at 50% now. That's very similar to Zwift. So now it'll be half the gradient as what you would experience outside. So that kind of makes it a bit easier when you are riding indoors. Rider list now updates to separate bots versus real riders. That's a good thing because before it's kind of confusing whether you could tell who is an actual rider or who is just an RGT bot. So that's nice to see. Elite Steerzo compatibility for steering. Previously, Elite Steerzo was only compatible with Zwift, and you had to use the Wahoo controllers in order to actually steer on the platform. So this is much better. And fixed, these are just lists of bugs that they have fixed. And turning off voice chat when toggling certain UI toggles, that has been fixed. A bug with elevation graph profile detail, increased detail of the slope profile, such that short elevation spikes are displayed correctly. That's nice to see. It's always great to see these small improvements that make the experience just that much better, because I remember when Zwift had the broken London elevation graph, that caused a lot of rage within the community because it was such a small thing, but Zwift took ages to fix it. Inability to change camera view after an event ends, that has also been improved. Fixed keyboard issue on long press for steering, and inactive rider transparency and clouds rendering. So these are just the small bug fixes. And now on to the part where I compare this to Zwift and how I think that this really impacts Zwift. Alright, so Zwift has been around for much longer than Wahoo RGT, and that kind of gives Zwift the upper hand in this situation. But in this case, it is currently Wahoo RGT who is playing the catch-up game, and they are playing it really well. So they've been releasing a game release every month, and that has contained substantial increases in usability and just overall improved experience for the users and added features and all that fun stuff. Whereas Zwift, they've sort of been releasing one major release, I'd say, every 6 months, and that's kind of gotten some users pretty upset with Zwift because they just aren't delivering the content at the pace that they used to before, because a lot of the features are already there, and Wahoo RGT, since they are catching up, they are the ones who are currently releasing tons of new features every single update, and that is something that the community just loves to see, because it just shows how quickly the developers are moving to try to get this game up to speed with other competitors such as Zwift. At this point, a lot of the features are already there. It's just that there is not as big of a community on Wahoo RGT as there is on Zwift. So on Zwift, you can see thousands of riders riding pretty much at all times throughout every single day of the year. But on Wahoo RGT, it's very rare to see more than 100 riders on the same course. And part of that reason is because they have so many different courses that are around the world. So you really can't really see lots of riders on the same course, because everyone wants to ride a different course, and it isn't on Zwift, where there's literally 3 different worlds and a select amount of courses on each of those worlds to kind of limit the amount of people that there are on one world, but then also keeping a lot of the riders within those 3 worlds and making sure that there is a large amount of riders in that world, so that as you're riding you can actually see riders on the road, and that's something that Wahoo RGT just does not have, and that kind of draws a lot of riders away from the platform and brings them to Zwift. So while Wahoo RGT is releasing features at a much quicker pace, it isn't quite enough to get riders to move away from the large community that Zwift has. But I think as time passes, Wahoo RGT is going to be a lot closer to Zwift in size as the years keep going on. But I think that it is going to be a while, but it will happen eventually, where these two platforms are side by side with some of the same amount of numbers on the roads. It's just they won't all be on the same roads, because Wahoo RGT is very different in the sense that you can ride in so many different places. You can even create your own routes, which is something that Zwift hasn't quite done yet, and that's something that a lot of riders have requested. But I can kind of see why Zwift does not want to do that, because they do want to keep that tight community feeling, which really keeps a lot of the riders on the platform. So to wrap this up, do I think that Zwift has been beat? No, not quite yet, but will they eventually? I think that it is very likely, because of how rapidly the Wahoo RGT platform is growing and adding new features. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and see you all next time. Ride on.